Good day, good evening, good night to you all. Happy to be with you once again as we celebrate the 27th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Our readings taken from Genesis 2:18 to 24, Psalm 128, Hebrews 2:9 to 11, and Mark 10:2 to 16. All these readings are reflective of marriage this weekend, and I guess the theme as such is the theme of faithfulness. God's faithfulness to us, and in turn our response to Him. Faithfulness is a very difficult thing, whether we speak about marriage or in terms of us being followers of Christ. Faithfulness is the difference between what we plan to do and what is actually done. And sometimes there is a big gap or a small gap, as the case might be, depending on how faithful we are. And the gap indicates our level of faithfulness. Our readings this weekend explores this theme with an interplay between faithfulness in marriage and faithfulness to Christ. And you might wonder, well, what's the connection there? Well, there is quite a connection, in fact. Marriage is revealed as a sacrament, a means whereby God communicates His grace to us. As such, it is a life-giving sign. Through the union of husband and wife, God intended to bestow His blessings on the human family, making it faithful, multiplying it until it filled the earth. The first reading from Genesis speaks of the bonding that sacramental marriage brings, and the two shall become one flesh. And the personal and extended benefits of this this blessing is mentioned also. It is not good for man to be alone. So in fact, what's indicated here is that we were created for each other. And the implication is quite clear. Marriage is not just an arrangement between two persons for their own mutual benefit. It fulfills a much wider purpose with certain social and global ramifications. And it even mirrors the marriage of Christ and the church. Through the union of Christ and the church, God's plan is fulfilled. And in baptism, we are made sons and daughters of the church, children of the Father, heirs of the eternal glory that He intended for the human family from the very beginning. But all of this, whether we are speaking of marriage or whether we are speaking of our faithfulness or unfaithfulness to Christ, is based upon the whole premise of faithfulness. The challenge for us is to live as children of the kingdom, growing up even more faithful in our love and devotion to the ways of Christ. One of my favorite references in speaking of faithfulness comes from St. Paul's letter to Timothy, where he says, "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith." It is a piece of scripture that we often use at funerals, and it refers to the need to persevere, that our Christian life is more than a sprint, it's a marathon, in fact. And Paul suggests here that in order to survive, you need to persevere. You need to survive in a world that often disagrees and is against your personal beliefs. So running the race of faith can seem very lonely at times, and sometimes the way seems very long, and we feel as though we cannot make one more step. Paul suggests that we draw strength from God's grace and remember the great crowd of witnesses who have gone before us, urging us forward. So my friends, whatever your circumstances might be, the message is very clear. Don't give up. As you go for communion this weekend, remember that it affords you the grace so that you may finish the race and remain faithful to Christ. God bless you all this weekend. For those in Canada, happy Thanksgiving.